Here on the South Shore, the town of Duxbury certainly marches to the beat of its own drum. Depending on which way you enter, you might be greeted by a 9-foot-tall metal dragon, or come across a tiny neighborhood that has a name that sounds like it belongs in Santa's village. You'll see some famous names and some that are lesser known, yet they all had a major impact in shaping the town that we know as Duxbury.
The town is sometimes referred to as the first suburb of Plymouth. It was settled in 1624 and incorporated not too long after in 1637. Nowadays, over 15,000 people call the town of Duxbury home. White-collar workers outnumber blue-collar workers 3-1, and unaffiliated voters make up 56% of the electorate. So if you're planning on running for office, you need to court that independent vote. But no matter which way you vote or what you do for work, we all need to start the day with breakfast. And we've got just the place for that in the center of town.
Heading through Hall's Corner, you'll find the Foodsmith, being run by two unlikely restaurateurs. Both are former columnists for two of the state's most highly circulated newspapers. Laura Raposa, who dished gossip with the Boston Herald, and Steve Sire, who wrote a business column with the Globe. Since opening in August of 2015, this husband and wife team now find themselves dishing out breakfast sandwiches and running a business that's managed to stay hot through all 4 seasons.
We've been a full year. We've experienced our first Duxbury summer, which was incredible, and we're just so grateful that people found us and have supported us, actually during the winter and summer. I mean, we were very happy, and we've got a bunch of core regulars that are here every day, and they were here during the snow and the rain and of the winter, and it's just been terrific.
If you want to stick around and eat, there are several window seats, or you can people watch from right here at the street level. But with so much to do and so many places to see in this town, it's no wonder why so many get their food to go. Unsure of where to go? A great place to start is right here at the Standish Monument. Even if you don't go up the tower, there are picnic tables here at the lower parking lot where you can eat that on-the-go breakfast and come up with some ideas. The monument itself stands at 116 feet tall, is capped off by a 14-foot-tall statue of Miles Standish, and serves as a lookout over the entire town. And if this looks like a complex structure, your eyes aren't fooling you. They began construction on this in 1872 and didn't finish building it until 1898, some 26 years later. The untrained eye won't notice the 3 different types of granite they used, but you will see the names of all 6 New England states over the archway. If you want to take a tour, though, you'll have to do it on the weekend during the summer months. Those who do go to the top may be inspired by what they see across the harbor, Duxbury Beach. It's here that you'll find 5 miles of some of the finest sand and surf on the South Shore. While the summer months easily bring in the biggest crowds, don't be too quick to discount the off-season months. There's enough beauty and serenity here to last from September to May.
And one way to get to the beach is to drive over a Guinness Book World Record holder. At nearly a mile in length, the Powder Point Bridge is the longest wooden bridge this side east of the Mississippi. But right now, let's head to a spot that you may not have seen from high atop Standish Monument.
It's on the side of the road in North Duxbury that you'll find the Lansing Bennett Forest, all 344 acres of it. Formerly known as the Trout Farm, this parcel of land was dedicated to the memory of Dr. Lansing Bennett, who served as chair of the town's Conservation Commission from 1967 to 1979, and he helped to secure over 1,200 acres of conservation land, as well as pass the Wetlands and Watershed Protection Bylaw. So what does all of that mean? Well, if you look at this map here, you'll see lots of square and rectangular shaped spots indicated by different shades of blue. Those spots represent all of the land in Duxbury that won't be developed, and it's a lot of land. And Trout Farm, now known as Lansing Bennett Forest, was one of his most satisfying land acquisitions. To get here, just take exit 11 off Route 3, then take a left onto Route 14 West. From there, you'll bear left at King Philip's Path, and then follow it straight to Union Bridge, where you'll turn right. We were hoping to see some bogs, though, so we headed over to North Hill Marsh on Mayflower Road. And if it looks like you're driving through the North Country in New Hampshire, you're probably in the right spot. These trails are great for hiking, biking, taking the dog, or just getting lost in nature. But to keep yourself from getting actually lost, keep your eyes open for the markings on the trees as you go. We were also told that if we kept the pond to our right this whole way, we'd eventually reach the cranberry bogs. Hopefully. And there does appear to be a light at the end of this pathway.
For a minute there, I was afraid I was having my own Blair Witch Project moment, but I did find my way to the old cranberry bogs, and I'm told that once you get to this point, you're about 3/4 of the way around the trail. Honestly, there are enough trails in this area to keep you busy for the entire day. Unfortunately, we don't have all day. We're heading to the other side of town now to find a spot where you can take your kayak out.
Kayak, rowboat, or swim. Just don't think about launching a motorized boat here. Ellison Beach, or Shipyard Lane Beach as it's known by locals, is the place to do all of those things. And if these kayaks lined up over here are any indication, then it would appear that folks in town are doing these activities with great frequency. And who can argue with the peace and serenity that this spot has to offer? For something a little more lighthearted though, head down the road to Bluefish Bridge. You can take your sea vessel out here as well, but when the tide is high, jumping off the bridge seems to be the order of the day. This guy here might be the coolest dad in the world. In fact, it might be difficult not to join in on the fun that these folks are having. I call this my diving ball. It's my cross between a dive and cannonball, and it always manages to keep me from hitting the bottom. You know, safety first. But if you're looking to do something a little drier, some arts and culture might be right up your alley. They're on full display Wednesday through Sunday at the Duxbury Art Complex Museum. Now in its 45th year, the museum has been serving the public with art exhibits, music, and on certain Sundays, one in June, July, and September, you can view a traditional Japanese tea ceremony. Along the walkway, you may even notice many of the Asian plantings and sculptures. The tea hut itself, named Wind in the Pines, was originally constructed in Japan in 1969 and reassembled here in Duxbury just in time for the first of these ceremonies in 1975. And the culture isn't just for the adults in the area.
We also do tea for the third grade of the Duxbury schools, and they do their performances in May. We have all 260 kids come down, and 2 groups one day and 2 groups the second day. And they remember, these kids remember they've been here. I've seen people years later and they say, oh, that's the place where the tea house was.
And if you're interested in touring some historic homes, the Duxbury Rural and Historical Society is always welcoming visitors. Check out the famous King Caesar House, which overlooks beautiful Duxbury Bay. It's here that they host the annual croquet tournament and Christmas party, among other events. Or you can go to the Historical Society's home office on Washington Street at the Nathaniel Windsor Jr. House, where they launch several of their walking tours from this gorgeous veranda out back. And if you're feeling a little adventurous, perhaps you can venture over to a part of town named for the workers that settled this area in 1757. A tinker was a person who traveled to different places and made a living fixing small items like pots and pans using hand tools. The original tinker to settle here on what is now known as Elm Street was a shoemaker named Jeremiah Dillingham. His settling here paved the way for other tinkers to follow suit, and they created their own section of town. The classic New England feel in this neighborhood is hard to ignore, from the old wooden fences to stone retainer walls to the barns behind many of the homes, which actually served as the workplaces for the tinkers when they inhabited this area. Years later, the barn on Steve Burrell's property was the original home of the Duxbury Clipper. The neighborhood may be small. In fact, someone we passed said, if you blink, you'll miss it. But for the folks that have lived here for decades, it's right where they want to be.
A lot of times, politicians, when they're running for office, they talk about family values and neighborhoods. It is kind of fascinating to actually live in one, where people really care about each other. If my dog got lost, there's a good chance, and he did sometimes, there's a good chance that somebody would find him and bring him back. I've never had a desire to move away from it, but just because of the sort of wonderful neighborly kinds of things that happen here, and people just really caring about each other and each other's families.
While many of this area's customs from 250 years ago have fallen by the wayside, there is one relatively new tradition that continues to this day, and it draws spectators from far and wide. It's known as the Night of Luminaries, and it happens every Christmas Eve. The residents of Tinkertown line the edges of their front lawns with candles in white bags, and it illuminates all of the streets in the neighborhood. It's really a sight to behold. Okay, right about now is probably time we start thinking about grabbing something to eat, but first, I gotta change this shirt. Okay, that's better. Let's go grab some dinner. The 1803 Windsor House Inn on Washington Street has a great combination of fine dining with a relaxed atmosphere, from the cozy bar at the entrance to the spacious seating outdoors on the patio as well as the backyard. On a busy night, the kitchen turns out anywhere from 180 to 200 plates, and most of it is locally sourced, like these oysters.
And if you like fresh produce, look no further than the backyard garden. Here you'll find several types of tomatoes, peppers, root vegetables, and spinach, just to name a few.
I think people these days are looking for a more natural, healthy way of eating, and I think that the farm to fork or farm to table is the new trend that everybody wants to go at. So it's important for us to be able to give the opportunity to our guests that satisfaction, because it really speaks volumes when it comes to cooking all the food and keeping up with everything that is going on.
And of course, the Windsor House is also an inn, meaning that if you enjoy too many spirits with your dining, you might be able to stay in one of the luxurious suites upstairs. Just not on this night, because all of the rooms were already booked. That gave us a chance to make one more stop on our way out of town. Farfar's Danish Ice Cream on St. George Street seems like one of those places you'd find in a brochure of places you'd have to go to if you're in the town of Duxbury. So I guess it was a good idea that we eventually stopped here. The business has been here since 1979, but aside from the owners, you won't find anyone working here that was even born then. In fact, these kids are so young, they weren't even born when the song 1979 by the Smashing Pumpkins came out, and that was 1995. But that's par for the course for the youth movement at Farfar's. It's almost like a rite of passage to work here if you're a kid from Duxbury. Whether it's making the ice cream or scooping it out to the customers that can't seem to get enough of its rich, creamy goodness. As evidenced by the banners on the ceiling of the colleges attended by past and present employees, it's safe to say that the kids are all right.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun working here in high school. You always see your teachers coming in after school, or some coaches or sports teams, and it's kind of cool getting to say hi to people that you know and getting to make ice cream for them. It's just kind of fun. I want someone to walk out the door thinking they tasted something unlike something they've ever tasted before. Just the best ice cream they've ever had.
Oh, banana ice cream. That is pretty awesome. See, I learned my lesson from the last time. If you're shooting a segment where you're eating ice cream, put it in a cup. That way it doesn't melt all over your hands. So our day in the life in the town of Duxbury has come to an end, and I still feel like there's stuff we need to see. So that just means we'll have to come back at another date. Reporting for PCN Life in Duxbury, I'm Brian Sullivan.